Welcome to Tigrai Media House. My name is Malikti Berhane-Mesco, and today I'm coming to you live from the studio because we're in Washington, D.C., where TMH has been covering the African Leaders Summit, the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit. This is the second summit that the United States has done. The last one was 8 years ago. And so 49 heads of state, including the African Union chair, were in DC. It was heads of state or prime ministers or high level officials were in DC. The only countries who were not invited were Burkina Faso, Guinea, Sudan, Mali, Eritrea, and Somaliland. So in this show, we're gonna break down some of the events and things that we saw, and I have two guests with me to do that from the United Women of the Horn, Ma'bel Gebremedhin and Hafsa Mohammed. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us on.
Yes, it's my pleasure. This was an exciting 3 days. There was a lot happening. Yeah. So all of these heads of state descended on DC. The roads were crazy. Everything was blocked off. It was tough to get anywhere or do anything. They had fireside chats with presidents. There were high-level panels. They talked about democracy, corruption. There were civil society meetings. Diaspora from all over the world were here. You all traveled here. You don't live in DC. Neither of you live in DC, so you both traveled here as well. Let's talk about that. What events did you attend? Yeah, tell us about some of the events you attended.
Oh, sure. Well, I can start. Can I first start by saying that it is an honor to be a TMH with the greatest journalist that Tigrai has ever had.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan. No. I love you so much. But the past 3 days have been very, very busy. It's kind of been a bit of a whirlwind. We went to the Diaspora Forum, which was very, very interesting. Learned a lot. We've seen a lot of them. Please, Hafsa, come in.
Yeah, no, the first day on Tuesday we attended the Diaspora Forum, and we went as United Women of the Horn, and we had different expectations, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, we went there and I really thought that, you know, the diaspora that flew from all over the United States and all over the world actually would be directly engaged by some of the senior, you know, officials and policymakers in regards to what's happening all over the continent of Africa. But it was almost as if it was staged, like it was just conversation, something you could watch on television. Or just watch it on a live stream.
Well, talk about what it was, though. So it was called the Diaspora Young Leaders Forum, I think is what it was called. And there were probably, how many people were in the room? A couple of hundred. It was very exclusive.
Yeah,
it was very exclusive, and you had to like be invited into that space. And so through your work with United Women of the Horn, you were invited. How many people were in the room? Diaspora.
I would say in the low hundreds, less than 200 in my opinion.
Okay.
It was very exclusive.
Yeah.
And it was an honor to be there as, you know, a representation of Tigray. But so there were different panels. There were a main panel where we got to hear a lot of different things. We got to hear Kamala Harris speak, Vice President. We got to hear, there was a fireside chat with Ambassador Linda Greenfield, I'm sorry. It's been a long day already.
I'm sure.
And so we learned a lot, but it was disappointing in the fact that although they were engaging the diaspora by inviting us to come and all of that, they didn't really allow us to question or speak up, and that was disappointing because a lot of the messaging that was given to us by these senior officials was that the diaspora's voice matters. The diaspora has a lot of power, and that we are the ones that will be able to help Africa grow as a continent, as a people. And so having us come and then not allowing us to speak up is what is the point of that.
So you couldn't ask questions. It was like
well, there was a moment we were able to ask questions. It was actually with the ambassador. And I wanted to specifically ask a question because she was the one who said, do African lives not matter, right? And so for her to say that in reference to what's happening in Tigray was really important for me to ask her about that. But they only allowed maybe two to three people to ask questions, and those questions were more around the African diaspora that lives, the African American diaspora in the United States. And so it was disappointing that we weren't able to get a little bit further.
Yeah. So what were the topics? What did they talk about? Give me an example of what either Kamala Harris or someone else was talking about in the actual forum itself.
It was really about the power of the diaspora, like that we are the voices, that we are the ones who will help shape the continent's future, the continent now, how the voices on the continent are just as important as the voices off the continent. It was a lot of that. It was also about how the African American diaspora is still connected to the continent through, maybe not through the roots that they're aware of, but through other ways, and that they also help shape what's happening in Africa. And so that was a lot of it.
Yeah, you're right. The diaspora is wide, right? We tend to just think of like ourselves, like people who just came here, but actually the diaspora includes African Americans, and I mean it's so big.
West Indians,
West Indians, exactly.
I feel like Mabel said, there's a lot of focus on the African American diaspora here, the Black Americans in the United States, and although there were a lot of diaspora from all over the continent of Africa, they had different topics that they were focusing on, like environmental equity, was education, and around
creative industries.
And creative industries. So they had side events outside of the main event that Vice President Kamala Harris was speaking at. So it was. I mean,
they even had a deal room where they were making deals with like entrepreneurs, like connecting basically, the continent with the United States in terms of making deals, and then they would ring a bell or like give an announcement every time a deal was made. Like someone
that
was
wasn't
interested.
at the Diaspora Forum. That was at at
the convention center. Then.
Yes,
so that was
okay. Maybe something that you went to.
That is something that I went to. I was in a couple of different conversations. So tell me about. You also had the privilege of hearing the Rwandan president at a fireside chat.
Yeah.
How was that? That was tough. That was a smaller space. It was very, very exclusive.
Yes.
There was security everywhere.
Oh
I was outside, and so we actually are going to show you some B-roll of him leaving the event. There he is.
Yeah.
There was this security. I mean, it was intense. It was really, really intense. But how was that? First of all, what was he saying? What was he talking about? What was that event like?
I mean, it was like you said, it was a very exclusive event. It was mainly, I believe, Steve Clemens, that was asking all the questions. There were a few moments where they allowed the audience, but they were very careful because, of course, with what's happening right now in the DRC or just in Congo in general and Rwanda, they wanted to control the narrative in that room. But it was interesting to hear him speak.
The security was very serious. I don't think I've ever seen security like that before. There was security everywhere, from the entrance of the building, from the cars. There was multiple cars. I was impressed by the amount of security.
Did anything he say? Was there anything like any revelations in what he was saying? Was there anything new or anything that was particularly interesting, or?
Yeah, well, so there were a couple questions that were asked. One of the questions were about the sponsors for the event, and it was posted behind him, and they were asking about investing in Rwanda. There was another question. Actually, there was one specific question that really stood out to me, and it was his answer is what stood out to me. He said that Rwanda, the question was based around the fact that UK was sending refugees to Rwanda, and what were his thoughts and the progress there. And his response, which I appreciated, was that why can't Africans stay in Africa? Why can't Rwanda be a place for Africans to go to? We as Africans should be able to stay on the continent. Maybe if our country is not working for us, let us go somewhere else where it will work for us, rather than having to go to the West or to Australia or to Asia. Why can't we stay together? And so I thought that was a good answer. But having that answer come from someone like him was interesting.
Kagame is an interesting person.
Yes.
They literally changed the constitution so he could have a third term. And apparently it's going to get changed again so he can extend his term again.
Yeah.
So really interesting. We're going to, in a minute, we'll show you some footage of protesters, but let's just talk about that. There were protesters everywhere from all over the continent.
Yeah.
That was really interesting to me. And in the diaspora, there's a lot of criticism about who was invited, why were they invited. You had the Congolese were protesting. They were protesting from Chad, the Cameroonians, the Tigrayans, Oromo, Ugandans were protesting. I mean, there were Africans everywhere protesting the fact that their leaders were invited, frustrated that their leaders, who are not necessarily democratic leaders, who don't necessarily share the same values that we believe in the United States, but they were all invited here. What are your thoughts on that? First of all, what are your thoughts about? We know Abiy Ahmed was also here, a man who's accused of genocide, was also at the event. I mean, What's your reaction to that?
I mean, it's disappointing in terms of, when it comes to the United States government or Joe Biden's administration. It's like, I understand that, world leaders need to be accommodated and dealt with, but in the specific case of, say, Ethiopia, like Abiy Ahmed, like you said, is not only, of course, accused of killing millions of people, but it's not something disputed. But he was there watching a World Cup game with the president of the most freest country in the world. That's insane.
That was an interesting moment.
It's really a disservice to Americans. It's a disservice to, Tigrayans, Somalis, everyone from the Horn of Africa. It's just really, it's disappointing is all I can say.
A lot has been said about that photo. That was actually a photo op. So basically, every 5 minutes or so, they were changing the people who were sitting in those seats. And so in one of them was Abiy Ahmed, obviously. I know you want to say something.
I do want to say something because I spoke to someone on the administration and I asked them, first I asked, did you see this? And they were unaware. And then when they did see it, they gave us a bit of background context. And it was a photo op that was not meant to be a photo op. And so what I was told was that President Biden wanted to just say a quick hello, sat down and watched the game with everyone, and Abiy understood what was about to happen, and so made it a photo op, made sure to take advantage of the situation and then leak the photo. So it was not meant to happen that way, apparently, and yet it did. And it's a shame because this is a stain on President Biden. This is not a good look for him or for the United States, including Blinken. Blinken took meetings with the Prime Minister is what we like to say. He took a lot of photos with him, and so the United States in this moment does not look too nice. The fact that they even did this is a summit for dictators, really, if we're going to be honest with each other. This is not an African leaders summit, this is a dictator summit, and the protesters saying that. Africans are protesting in multiple different ways. There was, during the panel, one of my favorite parts of the Diaspora Forum was there was a panel, and Ilhan Omar was speaking on it. It was very a diverse crowd of people that were a part of the panel. One of the speakers was Feli from Congo. He made sure to take a moment of his time to talk about what was happening to the Congolese, to talk about what was happening to his people, and state what he said was, what's happening in the Congo is so horrible and yet nobody's talking about it, and so I'm going to make sure that I talk about it when I can.
Wasn't that strange? There were no conversations about the crises that are happening. It was almost like we were going to just put that in the closet for the next 3 days and pretend none of that is happening.
That's the beautiful thing. Africans didn't allow that. We protested in multiple different ways. So he protested during his moment, but also protests on the street. And then there was even protests in private. We've been protesting everywhere, and I'm so proud of us as Africans, as Tagadu, protesting nonstop in multiple different ways.
I want to show a clip, actually. Let's play the clip of the Congolese protesters against Kagame.
Millions de personnes tuées?
Is the Ukraine had 2 million people killed?
Je ne pense pas.
No, we don't think so.
Mais au Congo,
But in Congo,
nous avons plus de 13 millions de personnes.
we have more than 13 million people
13
killed.
millions de personnes
13 million people
tuées
killed.
dans ces 20 dernières années.
We were killed in the last 20 years.
Et qui est l'auteur du crime?
Kagame,
Qui est l'auteur du crime?
Kagame,
Qui est l'auteur du crime?
Kagame.
Mais il est ici.
He's here.
Il est ici.
He's here.
Et on l'accueille
And they welcome
avec
him.
gentillesse.
We for the
On
good
veut enseigner aux Africains
the dream
que
as a
c'est un
singer.
modèle.
He's a
Je
model.
ne pense pas.
He's not.
Le modèle africain,
The model of
c'est ce
Africa.
monsieur ici.
Félix Antoine
C'est
Tshisekedi
ce
Tshilombo.
monsieur ici.
C'est Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo.
Puisqu'il joue avec sa diplomatie.
He's working with diplomacy, not
Il n'a
war.
pas engagé le pays dans la guerre
He
directement.
didn't put the country through
Il
war.
joue avec une diplomatie préventive.
He's playing with diplomacy preventive.
Wow. That was powerful. And they were right outside the convention center when Biden came to speak. So it was powerful, and people were stopping and filming. And you know what is beautiful but also troublesome is you had all these Africans who were protesting from different countries, but they weren't together. Everyone was in their own location in different spots around the convention center. And so some of that is good because now you're also spreading out so people can see you from all different directions. But but it was also sad to me that we weren't protesting together. Do you know what I mean? Collectively. Even within Ethiopia, you had the Amhara protesting separately, Oromo protesting separately, Tigrayans protesting separately. I mean, it's just an example of the problem. You know what I mean?
I agree. I agree, but I think although that's an issue, it seems like there's a unified voice, and that voice is very, very loud. It doesn't matter which country, but specifically for the situation that you and I are in, the three of us are in, is a unified voice against Abiy. And so although we may not protest together, we are essentially saying the same thing. I heard down, down Abiy from every single group.
Right.
That's incredible.
Right.
So although he has done a great job of essentially fracturing Ethiopia into a bunch of different parts, we have all come together and said down, down Abiy. And so it's still a very unified message that's being put out to the world.
That's one way to put it.
It is one message I think that everyone kind of agrees on when it comes to people from the Horn of Africa. But you're right, there needs to be that level of relationship building and solidarity to show up to these, these events and these protests together. It's a much more powerful, approach.
Yeah.
Rather than, you're right though, even though everyone's in their own corner and it's protests happening in different spaces, imagine all those people, if there's 50 in each group and they all come to that one place and everyone has their own flag and their own identity, but they're saying the same thing.
Right.
Which is,
but that's my issue too. So we know what we don't want, but we don't know what we do want. We know what doesn't work for us, but we don't know what works for all of us. You know what I mean? So that's but let's talk more about Abiy and his time here over the past 3 days. There has been an effort on his part to try and rehabilitate his image, because now he's known as someone who's presiding over a genocide, someone who's used food as a weapon, using food, and it continues. That's absolutely right, and continues to do so. So he came here with the intention of softening his image, and so they've done a number of things around that, including giving him a fake award. They said the American Academy of Achievements and the Global Hope Coalition gave him an award the first night he got here. So it was the day before the event started. Well, I personally reached out to the American Academy of Achievements. They did not give him an award. And also the Global Hope Coalition ceased to be a nonprofit since 2018.
Wow.
So neither of them gave him an award. There definitely was a ceremony, and he was given an award, but it appears to be made up. You can't track down who would have given him this award. So, and then you have the images that we showed earlier of him sitting with Biden.
I mean, that award sounds very on brand for him. Just,
noble
fake,
I
not
agree.
real. Yeah,
I agree.
Very on brand.
I agree. They did meet with different ambassadors. What's troubling to me is that they're trying to portray this as if there's peace now, that there's peace in Tigray. Well, it's a cessation of hostilities. It's not a peace agreement. There's no peace in Tigray. We still have Eritreans who are killing. Dr. Tedros just gave us an update about a family member that was killed in a massacre of over 50 people in one village just recently. So we know that awful things are still happening. But he's trying to rebrand himself. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think you can rebrand something that's still happening, and so it's all fake. I think he's done a very poor job of doing so, and so the world knows who he is. The world knows what he has done and continues to do to his own citizens, and so it's not something, it didn't work. All the effort he put in did not work, because we are still aware of the crimes that he's committing against all of our people. But there is no peace in Tigray, and there won't be until there's accountability. For peace to be sustainable and to be real, there has to be accountability, which leads to justice, and then we can speak of peace. If Eritrea is still killing everyone, raping everyone, and Ethiopia is still starving everyone, where is the peace? This is a COH. It is a cessation of hostilities. It is not a peace agreement. It is not a peace deal. It's none of that. We are not at peace yet. And so for everyone to constantly say, congratulations, peace is here, or yay, peace is here. Where? I still have not been able to speak to my family. Have you?
No.
Right. We are still in the dark. The internet still doesn't work. Food aid is not being allowed in. Our women are still being raped. People are being massacred left and right. Where is peace? It's not there. And so.
But that's the messaging.
It's
that's
incorrect.
being put out.
It's incorrect.
It's really For me, I find it so bizarre that when he's in D.C. and then two people are mentioning a peace deal that does not exist, like it is just a cessation of hostilities, but that's not even being implemented at all.
That's true.
So for him to try and do PR and rebrand his image, of course, the people who know him and who know the type of, like evil dictator that he is, we're not going to buy it, right? But for, say, the average person who's probably just like, wait, maybe he's good now. Maybe he's going to stay until elections. Maybe he's, he's changing. Like, it's insane that it's working for him.
Right.
Then, like Mabel said, there really needs to be accountability. You can't kill millions of people and then just be awarded a fake award and have, the parties in D.C. Like, it's just, it doesn't work like that.
Photo ops and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
There was an incident that happened. Let's talk about that.
Yes, please. I would love
So
to.
we were talking about protests that are happening all over, the normal protests with people with bullhorns and they're on the street and all of that. Abiy Ahmed is staying obviously at a local hotel.
Sure.
And before you can attend any of these events, you have to take COVID tests. And so we learned about an incident this morning that happened. Tell us the story, because you're the one who got the tea.
I'm so proud to be from Tigray. Like, our people are the most beautiful. Anyway, you can protest in multiple different ways. It's not always someone screaming on the street. There's multiple different ways of protest. And one of our sisters, I believe it was a sister, was lucky enough to be the person that was giving Abiy Ahmed a COVID test.
Wait,
Wow, that's crazy.
Yes.
So you're telling me
That's funny.
Yes.
the nurse who
Yep.
was giving Abiy Ahmed a
Yes.
a COVID swab,
Yeah.
swabbing his nose, was a Tigrayan.
Yes.
Okay.
A woman.
Okay.
Ugh,
Okay.
I love her.
Okay.
And what she then did, actually, I believe there was two of them, but there was one main person. And what she then did is, as soon as she got very close to him in his face, because to get a COVID test, it has to go all the way up your nose. So
Right.
she's there, and then starts singing Tigrinya songs in his face.
So as she's swabbing his nose, she was singing Tigrinya songs.
She sure was. Oh my gosh, the anger that he felt.
He got angry.
He got angry. He was so angry. He was so angry. He sent letters and emails to as many people as possible. But what can you do?
Right.
You know,
Right.
to God, we're here.
Right.
And also, we're in America.
Yeah, you
Right.
can't
We have the
try to
rights.
commit genocide in America. Like
That's right.
crazy.
We have the right. We have the right to protest any way
Yeah.
that we want. We have freedom of speech.
Yes.
We have our rights in the United States of America, and that is not something that Abiy wants. And so he was very, very upset. But I love it, and I'm so proud of our people.
Wow.
Could you imagine? Could
Yes.
you imagine?
Yes.
So it's already bad enough that he's
Yes.
going to get his COVID test, and it's a Tigrayan
He
who's
didn't know.
administering the test.
He had no
because
idea.
because of the discrimination, he's done
Positive.
so much.
She could have just said he's positive. You gonna stay in the hotel quarantine.
She should have said he was positive.
You're not going to any of the events. Quarantine 14 days.
Quarantine.
Don't come out of your room. all day.
Oh my God! So she goes to swab him. He's already petrified at this point because and then she starts singing
Yes.
Tigrinya songs.
Yes. It reminded
I mean, it's a form
me-
of protest.
Exactly.
It's a form of
It is.
protest, right?
It reminded me of early on the genocide, like in November, December, January, where Tagadu would bomb the Zooms of the Ethiopian embassy and all the other meetings, and they'd start playing Tigrinya music.
Right.
And so, our music is our.
It's revolutionary music.
It is, but it also keeps us going.
yeah.
Our music is our anthems. It's everything to us.
Well, whoever you are that did that, we need you to reach out to us because we
Please.
would love to have a conversation and know what song you sang.
I want to be best friends. Please find me.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. No. No.
Egomaniac. He's just.
I need to know who did that. We need more information. But yeah, so what we heard today were the letters that they wrote to the State Department and to whoever, all
everywhere.
these different people. Like, this is frustrating. This is
Very
what happened.
angry.
Why did this happen? But yeah, that's
Next time, he
That's
should put in
wild.
a request to get his COVID test done only by Ethiopians.
Well,
Or something somebody else. I don't
Yeah.
know.
But the irony in that, do you know what I mean? The irony in that moment, like you've done everything you can to quell the voice of Tigrayans. You've put them in the dark, quite literally, with no electricity, no phones, and no internet, no free movement. They can't leave Tigray. They can't go into Tigray. But then you come here and you're met face to face with someone you can't do that to.
No.
You know,
You
there's
can't take her voice away.
The fact that he's writing letters like this is the United States.
shooting letters off to everybody. You know,
Very
just
angry.
just upset. and all she did was hum a song, you know, sing a song.
But you know the power of our music.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This will haunt him forever, though.
It will.
This will haunt him forever, everywhere he goes. You know, I mean, it's a genocide over 800,000
This is what he'll be known for. This is his
people
legacy.
been killed. This is his legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the frustration for so many in the diaspora, including all the different Africans who were protesting, is these are people who are committing the most atrocious crimes, but then you bring them here. And I mean, I get it though. I mean, you have to have conversations. You know, that's what diplomacy is. You have to some extent. But these are people who are currently committing these crimes,
Right.
you know? And so, anyway, sounds like it was a successful 3 days.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah,
busy.
it is really-
It has been very
Yeah,
busy.
yeah. Did you do good networking? And I feel
Absolutely.
like that was one of the positive things, is watching different Africans connect.
Yeah. Well, you know me, Melody. Everywhere I go, I'm going to talk about Tigray.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what I'm doing and continue to do and have been doing for the past week here. But yes, now everybody that was at the forum knows about Tigray. And they'll
Some who
continue
didn't
to
know. I met people even now, they just learned it from us, from
Yeah.
conversations in
Yeah.
different rooms. So that's very shocking.
Yeah, it's
That people still
disappointing.
don't know
They-
what's
exactly.
happening.
Yeah.
All over Ethiopia too. I mean, we were having pretty robust conversations around that. But anyway,
Yeah.
thank you
successful
both for
days.
your work.
Thank you.
Yeah,
happy.
United Women of the Horn.
Thank you.
Good job being here and representing and having the conversation and being leaders. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Melody. You are the pride of Tigray. You are amazing. Thank you,
We all
Melody.
are. You know. We all are. So we're going to close out the show with an interview that I did with Nathan Tech. Nathan Tech is the deputy, I believe, spokesperson for the State Department. And so we'll play that interview for you now.
So my name is Nathan Tech. I'm the deputy spokesperson for the U.S. State Department.
Thanks for taking the time to speak with me. My name is Meliti. I'm with Tigrai Media House. To start with, can you just tell us about the African Leaders Summit? Who was invited? What are some of the activities? Just a high-level overview.
Yeah, so this week is really exciting for us because we're hosting 49 leaders from the African continent and a delegation from the African Union as well, for really a very wide range of conversations at a very high level across a wide range of shared priorities that we have with the continent. And it's really about ensuring that we have a collaborative relationship with African countries to ensure that we are really meeting the challenges of the 21st century. So over the course of this week, we're having conversations and will have conversations about the climate crisis, about food security, about health care and health systems and beating back the COVID-19 pandemic and other health crises as well. In addition to conversations about democracy, governance, peace and security, and strengthening institutions across the continent. Now, in addition to that, of course, there's also conversations about, among sort of diaspora leaders, right, conversations among the private sector, and a number of other conversations as well. So it's really not just at the government level, but also at the people-to-people level as well, which is really exciting.
That's great. This is the second time this has happened. The last one was 8 years ago. What message does that send, that it's been such a large gap since there's been a meeting with leaders on the continent to this extent? And also, can you articulate the U.S. strategy with the continent? Obviously, very diverse.
Yeah.
It's a continent.
Yeah.
But what is the just general strategy with
Yeah. Well, look, I wouldn't see summits as necessarily a metric for engagement or the sole metric for engagement, right? The fact is that we have had a consistent presence on the continent diplomatically for a very long time. We were one of the first countries, for example, to set up a diplomatic mission to the African Union in 2006, right? And we have U.S. embassies in nearly every single AU member country. And frankly, in diplomacy, 99% of the work is simply showing up and being there, right? And every day, our ambassadors and diplomats have conversations with folks in these countries to advance shared concerns and shared priorities. Look, the Biden administration has a very, I think, clear sub-Saharan strategy, a strategy for sub-Saharan Africa, one that's rooted in encouraging interconnectedness and a free and open order in the region, and one that's focused on ensuring that we work with the continent and not simply for the continent, right? It's one in which we understand that Africa is, in fact, a rising geopolitical player, and we have to deal with Africa and African countries on that basis. crisis. We also have to deal with the fact that, or acknowledge the fact that, frankly, at this point, right, African economies are young, they're dynamic, they're vibrant, and they're the forefront and they're the future of diplomacy. So we need to be there, have a seat at the table, and have an open and collaborative relationship with our colleagues in the region.
You mentioned the diaspora. There have been protests all around the
That's
city.
right. That's right.
We had the Cameroonians were at the Smithsonian. The Ugandans were protesting. The Rwandans are right outside the convention center.
Yes, I saw them.
Actually.
Yes.
The Tigrayans, the Oromo.
Yes.
What message do you have for the diaspora who sort of question when you host leaders who are, in many cases, anti-democratic, or in the case of Ethiopia, accused, Abiy Ahmed accused of genocide? What message do you have for the diaspora that's frustrated?
Sure. Well, look, first of all, I want to say I completely and significantly understand the concerns of the diaspora. I'm a member of the African diaspora. My mother actually is from Ethiopia. She came from here in 1980. Look, I hear it every day, not only at work, but also at home, frankly, right? So, look, the fact is that when it comes to our relationship with the continent, right, we took a strategy in which we wanted to be as inclusive as possible when it came to issuing invitations, right? These invitations were issued to countries that were in good standing with the African Union and countries with which we have diplomatic relations. And that's the precedent that was set in 2014 when we hosted the USALS as well. We believe we will never hesitate or shy away from raising human rights issues. We will never hesitate or shy away from raising our concerns about democracy and governance on the continent. That's what people on the continent want, right? They want good governance. They want democracy. They want respect for human rights, and we stand right with them. We have to have these summits and these conversations at the government-to-government level to advance those goals. Diplomacy is always about talking with people, even if you disagree with them on certain issues, and that's what we're doing here.
Does it hurt or help democracy when the U.S. partners with regimes who don't share their values?
Well, look, like I said, right, we have, in diplomacy, you have to talk with people sometimes with whom you disagree, right? And we've extended we want to have these conversations with people, and we don't hesitate about raising our concerns about freedom of the media, freedom of the press, civil society, and ensuring free and fair elections. This is a critical part of our strategy in the region, and it's one that we're going to continue to pursue aggressively and using every means available at our disposal.
Here's a question for you. So Biden supports an AU seat on the G20, but an overwhelming number of Africans in diaspora feel like the AU continues to fail them, even on a basic level like safety and security. Mm-hmm. In Tigray, 120,000 women were systemically gang raped. These are in human rights reports. Pretty much every organization has written about this. Why is giving the AU more power a good approach?
Well, look, the AU at the end of the day is a multilateral institution, and multilateral institutions are only as effective as the countries who are members of those institutions, right? And so we believe that multilateralism is actually essential, right, to upholding the UN Charter. It's essential to achieving the shared priorities that we have and that we have with the African diaspora and the peoples of the continent, right? And so, the fact is that the AU is an institution that we've worked very closely with and collaboratively with in establishing this summit, and we work with the AU very closely as well in Addis Ababa, where their headquarters are located, and to address a number of shared challenges of peace and security and development on the continent.
So the cessation of hostilities was signed in Ethiopia. Yeah. It's been hailed as a victory by a number of people. The State Department was heavily involved in those negotiations. There has been some aid that's come through, but we just heard today from the Biden hospital that they only got medicine for 2 days. So there's still a crisis happening. People are still being displaced. How is this a victory for the people of Tigray? We know Abiy Ahmed is here and met with Jake Sullivan. Can you tell us anything about that conversation and a message around that?
Yeah, look, obviously we want to see full implementation of the cessation of hostilities agreement. We want to see the withdrawal of Eritrea, and we want to see ultimately a peaceful resolution to the conflict. And we're working diplomatically closely with the AU, and this has been a regional sort of led initiative to try to implement that kind of peace agreement. So we're going to continue to work very closely with our partners on the continent to achieve a positive outcome for all involved.
Is there anything more we can do to get aid in? Because people can't survive without medicine. People can't survive without food. And, we're getting alarming numbers of 150 people dying every day. Yeah. Is there anything else that the U.S. can do to pressure Abiy? And was that a topic of conversation today in terms of the emergency that is.
Yeah, the implementation of the agreement obviously was a subject that did come up in our high-level meetings today, and we're going to continue to press for the full implementation, including the delivery and of humanitarian assistance and humanitarian access.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah.